Yes, everyone, and welcome to Greek Talk, the premier video podcast for Greek genealogy enthusiasts. Greek Talk is hosted by Gregory Kontos, founder of Greek Ancestry, and co-hosted by Georgia Stryker-Kilman of Hellenic Genealogy Geek and Carol Kostakos-Petranek of Spartan Roots. We open every episode with news that we would like to share with you. So first of all, a reminder that Greek Ancestry has released birth, marriage, and death records from the island of Kefalonia, spanning from 1841 through 1932. And what's new today is that we recently released two more collections, records of Chiot and Cretan refugees of the 1821 revolution, as well as parish census records from the villages around Mistras in Laconia. But Carol and Georgia, they also have something to tell you.
Okay, everybody, so we are super excited. Georgia and I, a couple of weeks ago, decided that with the way our community is growing worldwide, there are so many people coming in that have a lot of questions about the basics of how to do their family history. So we are starting a series of mini videos, step by step, taking people through how to start their Greek genealogy, what type of records to look for in the US or in the immigrant's new country to help find the original name and village of origin. And then we'll proceed on to records that they can expect to find in Greece. Georgia, you want to fill in a little bit more?
Sure. We just announced it yesterday. Bite-sized Greek genealogy is what we're calling it. We're trying to keep it to short videos, like 10 to 12 minutes each. Our first of all, we're doing it based on the type of questions we see in Hellenic Genealogy Geek all the time. So people aren't asking about where can I find a record. They're asking, how do I do this? So our first one was on tips about names and villages. And the second one is more in line with what we're going to be doing more regularly, which is how to. So how to find your grandfather's Greek name was the second one. And we take everybody through all the different types of records that have the Greek surname on it and where they might possibly find it. So hopefully this will help everyone, and we're really excited.
We are.
I think this is a great idea. So in today's Greek Talk, we are discussing about organizing local genealogy conferences. And we have with us Anastasia, also known as Topsy Douris from Ikaria, who just co-organized the first Ikarian Genealogy Convention. Topsy's joining us over phone because connection on the island of Ikaria is not easy. So, hi Topsy.
Hi everybody. Good evening.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about the conference, first of all, how you decided to do this.
Well, the concept of the conference was to try and get the locals and the Ikarians abroad to start to ask questions, start to write down their trees. We'd already started collecting trees from people who had done them but had done nothing with them. But the idea was really to get people talking about genealogy, to remember that if they don't ask the questions of the older generation, lots of information is going to be lost. So we had hoped in 2020 to hold a conference, but COVID had other ideas. And it was just this year that we finally managed to bring it all together.
When had you originally, when was the plan for the first one? 2020?
2020, yeah, it was May 2020 was the first one. But we had to cancel that because of COVID. And then we thought about doing it in 21, but it was still problematic. And again, what we did in 22, 23 is we just had tree exhibitions. So we take the trees that we had around the island to different villages, which helped start some more conversation. But then eventually this year, last year, we decided that, well, COVID is still around, but it's not the big problem it was. So we thought we would go forward and try and get this organized.
Topsy, this is Carol. I remember talking with you back in 2020 when you were trying to, when you were planning that first conference. And I just want you to know how much I admire you for sticking with it and not letting COVID or anything else get in your way. We were so excited to hear that this was finally happening this year. I've been watching the videos and I just have so many things to ask you. The first one is, whose idea was it to do it in both Greek and English? Because that is really brilliant. That doubled your audience right there. You are able to
Really a necessity because we have a very large Ikarian presence in America as well as Australia, and they have an organization called the Pan-Ikarian Brotherhood, and they have chapters all over America. And I get a lot of questions from these people about, you know, are we related here? Are we related there? And some of them can speak Greek, but not terrifically to be able to follow a seminar, a talk. They know how to communicate with their relatives, you know, the shops, etc. So it was a necessity, really. It was no use trying to do it just for the locals. We needed to do it for the diaspora that was in America. We didn't have very many from Australia. We had one or two, but we did have a lot from them. We had quite a few people come over from America just for the convention. They only stayed 5 days. It was a long journey for them. And, they just came, saw the convention, and then stayed a day, and then left. So it was for them as well, to try and help them, because they're the ones that really have been searching for their roots.
That's inspirational. That's all I have to say. This is Georgia, by the way, Topsy. This is inspiring. What a great thing you've done.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Georgia says that it is very inspiring what you did.
Thank you. I mean, it wasn't just me; it was Irini as well, my co-conspirator. But yeah, we're now hoping to form a club, a syllable.
Okay.
We've had our debriefing after the convention, and we feel that a lot of them want these trees up on the web. They want information. They want this, that, and the other. And we feel that if we had a membership situation, a proper syllable, we could maybe sort of set up a website. Maybe, you know, next time we have the convention, we'll be able to see exactly what they want. We do have a problem here on Ikaria, and I'm sure you saw it, Greg, when you came, is that it's a long island, and the distances between the three main villages are quite, you know, it's like an hour. Mm-hmm. So what we did find is that we held it in the middle of the village, and mainly because where we held it was a theatre in a school, and it's the only one on the island. With a projector, and actually with the new sound system wasn't in, but there is a new sound system with you know, more than one mic, and they're putting in air conditioning. But when I went out and asked people, well, why didn't you come? People who don't live in our area in the middle I spoke to some people in Rakis, and I spoke to some people in Ayos. And they all said, oh, it's the distance, you know. And I suppose I could understand that in one way. So we don't know how we're going to get around that the next time we do it, which we're thinking of 2026 for the next one. Mm-hmm. We need to think about that seriously as how we can get more people involved. We're not a round island. We're not an island where it's only 20 minutes or half an hour to get to wherever, you know, to the main place. We are spread across, you know, sort of 2-3 hours from one end to the other. In fact, I think it's about 3 hours from one end to the other. So we've got that problem to solve yet. And a few others, obviously.
One idea, sorry, Topsy. One idea would be to, like, next time, you could, the conference could take place in all 3 main villages. So just 1 or 2 presentations in each village every day. So,
like a traveling show.
Right, yeah. One day in Agios.
Greg, the original format was supposed to be exactly that, and repeating them. But the problem with that is that there's no projections, there's no projectors in some of the places that we could use. So that's got to be thought of, sort of in thingy. The one thing I thought was to make a one-day convention and take the same convention to the 3 places. To move around the island, like to go somewhere in the morning and then go in the evening, that is for us very difficult, because we're talking about distances, and we're talking if you're going in the night time, a bit dangerous as well. So it is a problem we've got to overcome to be able to make it all inclusive.
Topsy, I'd like to ask you about
every single way we can do that.
Yeah, Topsy, I'd like to ask you about some of the people who presented their research at the conference. There were a couple of gentlemen and a lady that I've watched so far, and they seem to have done extensive work. Notebooks and families going back to the late 1700s. How did these people who presented, do you know what prompted them to even start looking into their family history, to do that extensive amount of work?
With them, the problem, they have gone back. I mean, I've gone back quite a bit as well, but the problem is that it's all word of mouth. Because, Greg will know this, because of the lack of records here, it's difficult to actually verify some of the stories, and the names, etc. And I've been working on my own family came down from one of the villages in the mountains. The bloke had 2 sons. We are descendants of one side of one son, and the other son. I've been working on correcting the information that has been put down by somebody else, to get that right, but it's very difficult. We do have a lot of old people, and that's why we felt it was important to start this project now, so before these people left us. And they do remember. It's amazing. I got a gentleman come 2 days before the convention and came to visit me here to give me a tree, his family tree. But when I say he gave me the family tree, it was all in his head. And he rattled off children, marriages, all sorts of things. I had to stop him because he had so much information. I took so much down. I said, let me collate this and bring it to you, and we'll start again and fill the rest in. So there are people here on the island who, because of our, I suppose, the way the island is, people used to tell stories, used to tell about their ancestors, used to say, this happened, that happened, and that's been passed down. There are some stories that have lost. We found out with doing the DNA project, where people have been taking DNA tests, and we've collated all the information in one place. And a lot of the Ikarians here have Sardinian blood.
Oh, interesting.
And when we sort of questioned this and said, well, hold on a moment, you've got Sardinian blood. Do you know anything about that? And they said, oh, yeah, we know about that. Yeah, it was a Sardinian merchant. He got caught by the pirates, and he paid the pirates off, but they left him here. He couldn't get away afterwards, so he stayed here. Now, that story I'd never heard. it was only through doing the DNA that it came to light, because we actually have, and it's not an old situation, because the percentage DNA is anything between 10 and 15%. So it's not like 5-6 generations ago.
Right.
All over the island as well. That's the other thing that amazed me.
Yeah, so I wanted
Darwinian blood all over. So there are stories that have been forgotten, and one of the reasons why I did the convention was to get people talking to their old people and say, you know, come on, what do you remember?
Yeah. There was a story told in the conference around DNA and how that led to an individual finding their extended family, and not only there, but in other areas of the world. So have you started, or has anyone started a DNA project for the island? And can you tell us about that?
Here for, I would say it's been probably about 3-4 years now. So it's a voluntary thing that, you know, people pay and they come along to us, and then we get the initial information. And I've also, people in America have given me their information when they've had a DNA done. And I've produced some pie charts and things like that as to what our makeup is. Very varied. The way I've sorted it out is if somebody has 4 grandparents that are Ikarian, we call them 100% Ikarian. If they have 3 grandparents, they're 75%. If they have 2, they're 50, etc. So that all the information is put together, and then it's all split according to whether their families are from Ikaria or whether they're from somewhere else as well, Greek, you know. But it's quite interesting to see most of the, practically everybody here has some Asia Minor in them.
Oh, interesting.
We are very close to Asia Minor, so it didn't really surprise, and people used to go there to live in that. And we've also had quite a few people who originally lived in Asia Minor during the Ottoman Empire. A few people came over here to hide. They got into trouble over there and they came here to hide. We have one family who had to leave his family in Turkey in the Ottoman Empire, and he came and married. He left, I think, a wife and 4 children, and he came here. He married. He had more children, but the family knew about the family on the mainland in Asia Minor. They knew about them. They knew that he'd have to leave that family behind. So the fact that we've got quite a bit of Asia Minor in us, I suppose, is natural.
How long have you been working on this project, Topsy?
Pardon?
I remember hearing you present years ago at one of Greg's conferences.
Greg, can you repeat that? It's echoing a bit.
Yeah. So Georgia is asking, how long have you been working on this project?
About 4 years. We started just before we started about I think it was the Christmas of, it might have been 18 or 19. We started it, but it's a voluntary thing. You know, people pay. They just know I buy a load of kits at the time, and then people come along and say, yeah, I'd like to take a test. So we've not done as many as I'd hoped, really. Some people are very wary of the DNA, but enough to get a picture of, you know, what mixture we've got in us. Quite a few have got the Jewish and quite a bit of Italian, but yes,
we should note that all the DNA tests are mainly, the majority is MyHeritage DNA.
Yeah. There are some people that have done that have given me their tests that have done them independently in America, and some of those are 23andMe and Ancestry, and it is a bit difficult then to put them in because they have different categories, of course. One of the reasons chose my heritage was because I felt that as a Greek island in the North Aegean, we were far more connected with southern Italy than we were with the Balkans or with Albania.
Mhm.
I think if you come from the mainland and up north, you might have, connections with Albania or the Balkans because the borders moved quite a bit at various times in history. But down here, I didn't feel that we had connections with the Balkans as much. I mean, there might be one or two that have something, but generally speaking, the Ikarian was very isolated. And if they had any connections, it was more with Mega Grecia and Italy and Asia Minor than with the Balkans or with Albania.
Topsy, I have a question about how the local community in Ikaria reacted to this conference. So I think it was 50 and 50. Like there were 50% were diasporans and 50% were locals. But in general, what kind of feedback did you get from locals who attended?
We got very good feedback from the locals. And in fact, we got a spurge of the DNA testing at the conference and later. And we got people coming and saying, well, how do I get you my tree, etc. I think they enjoyed it. I was very pleased with how much they joined in and asked questions. So generally speaking, the ones I've spoken to were all very pleased with this. They'd already experienced the exhibition of the trees, but the main problem, the main sort of negative bit that I got was from people who didn't come. They wanted to come, but they didn't feel, they wanted to do that journey. That's the main feedback we had, that was disappointing in a way that they hadn't made the journey. We didn't seem to get. We invited all the schools, as well as all the silogi, all the community groups, and Irini was keeping track of those, and she was quite disappointed with it. She felt that somebody should have come from every school. As I said in one of my messages to you, Greg, when you send me that information you found about the businesses and the students, we are going to do a survey on those islands and reproduce the businesses in each place, because what struck us with what you'd found was the difference of each of the villages, i.e. Vakni is practically, there's hardly anything there now, and yet it had more inhabitants than Epilos or Karabostamo.
Yeah.
So we feel that, and it's 90 years this year. So when I get that information from you, we're going to start this project and redo those villages that you've got the information for. And I think that would be quite a good social experiment, because I am going to have a talk with my daughter, who's the headmistress of the Liceo here, and with Strato, who's the headmaster of the one in Ayos, and probably Rakis, and see whether I can get the children involved, so that maybe they will then get the bug.
That's a great idea.
Find out a bit more about their heritage and who lived where and when.
Yeah. Georgia is saying that this is a great idea, and I agree. And I would like to note that, it's very interesting, because generally we tend to believe that Greeks in Greece are not interested in genealogy at all. But in this case, this proves us wrong. And not only that, but also perhaps it indicates that one way to get them interested is to focus on the local level.
Mm.
So to a Greek American, you know, the fact that they are Greeks, they have Greek roots, that's enough for them to motivate them, you know, to look into it. But to a Greek in Greece, perhaps, you know, it's the fact that they are Icarians that motivates them, the fact that they are Arcadians, Laconians. So perhaps this more local identity is more relevant in this case than the national identity.
I think you're right. I think that we do sort of battle against the idea that, well, I know who my family is. I know who my great-grandfather was. I know that my great-grandfather's brother married into the other family over there. So we do battle with that a little bit. And all we're saying is, look, you know, you give us the information and we're happy to put it down on paper for you. I don't know whether you were around when Dimitri, the one who did the talk on the photograph, brought a roll of paper. I don't know if you saw it, a tree. Did you see it, Greg?
I don't remember.
Huh?
I don't remember that.
Right. Well, I will I will show it you when I've got to get a copy of it and give it to him back. And to do that, I've got to go to a proper printers.
Okay.
This is a tree made by a gentleman from here who went to America after the war. And it is massive. It's massive. It's so detailed and so many other trees in it, if you know what I mean. He's done. I mean, he's obviously done the work and then given it to somebody to put into this. It's a very long sheet of paper. I mean, I would say it's maybe 2-3 meters long.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking forward to converting it into charts, but I'm also not looking forward to it because it's so big and so detailed that I know it's going to be a job for the winter.
Wow.
But there are people out there who have their trees here in Ikaria. They've written them down. They used to write them down in the Bible here. I don't know if they did that elsewhere.
What I did see was the Fuscas family.
Yeah.
So they have noted some family events like births and deaths on the walls.
Ah, right, yeah.
Which I have never seen
on the walls
before.
of their home.
Wow.
Yeah,
No,
like they have this little stable, and outside the stable on the cement, they have you know, some names and dates.
Oh, wow.
Right. I mean, I do remember years ago in my ex-in-law's house, they had a Bible with all the names in, but unfortunately it went missing. The people, my late father-in-law or sister-in-law just didn't look after it because they've gone now, and I know that Bible doesn't exist. Yeah, I know it was there. I remember it in, 73, I think it was.
Yeah.
And people, you know, they'd written in the front of the Bible the marriage and then the children and then, you know, who they'd married, etc. And it was a couple of generations. So they did. A lot of them have these things called a manor. You know, you've heard of that, I'm sure you heard the discussion about it. And that is just a collection of papers like wills and dowries. When we say dowries here in Korea, it was very different. If you didn't have a house, you couldn't get married. And the man, not the woman, the man.
Interesting.
The man had to make a house, build a house, and that's why everybody used to help. They used to go along and help him build a room, and then he could get married. The woman, the dowry that she brought was her cutlery, her bedding, all that type of thing, household goods. The house was made by the man. And my brother has our capricorn, and that was done by my grandfather when he wanted to marry my grandmother. And his brothers helped him build a room, and then he built another room. But here they didn't have the dowry of the, you know,
like the
man,
Peloponnese.
the woman for the man to go in.
Yeah.
And in fact, if a man moved to the village of his wife. They used to call him Isogabros.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you get the different surnames, and they'll say, oh, there's such and such a surname there, but they're not from there in Isogabros.
Right.
And it was just totally different the way they worked here. Totally different. The community, I think that's maybe why we are more interested in our ancestors, because it was a very closed community.
Mhm.
You know, if somebody married somebody from the other side of the island, they'd marry the Xeno.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Because, I mean, you saw the island, you came along
Yeah,
the road,
yeah.
yeah, from the airport.
Yeah.
But you've got to remember there was no road.
Right.
They went over the mountains on a mountain path to go to the other side.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that very often.
Yeah.
So if somebody found somebody from the other side and brought them back to live, they were Xeno. Most of the ones that what I suppose you could call mixed marriages between the one side of the island and the other, they happened because they met them either in Smyrna or in Egypt, and there'd be, like my grandfather was, he met my grandmother who's from the other side of the island, but he didn't meet her here. He met her in the church in Smyrna.
No, that's very interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of the marriages that happened between people in the 1800s were that way. They wouldn't really mix with the people on the other side of the island because it was so difficult for them to get there, to meet them. They wouldn't have met them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way we are is, I mean, that's not the way it is now, but the way we were, I think, has made it so that people are interested in genealogy because we were a closed community and they're interested in each other's, you know, they're interested in their families.
Yeah. No, you're commendable for what you conceived and organized. And I think what I saw was that there will be interest for another Ikarian Genealogy Convention in the future.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think there'll be more Americans come over if we try to plan it a bit earlier, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we started, I think, in late autumn last year. I think it needs to start next year and say, well, look, we've decided on these dates, because when people come from America, it's a long way. They have to buy their tickets, and you know, we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Greg, ask about what recommendations she has for other people who are thinking about organizing a conference.
George is asking, what would you recommend to someone organizing a local genealogy conference?
Or would you do anything different?
Well, I'm sure each area is different. I mean, we have, you know, we had a talk on the photographs and the documents, because we know that people hoard these documents in their homes and don't give them to Angeliki to even copy, you know.
Right.
And then the surnames are interesting because our surnames are, we have a few surnames here on the island, as is my surname, Douris. This is where it started. If there's anybody anywhere else, they came from Ikaria originally. You don't find the surname elsewhere. So we knew that the interests were, you know, surnames and that, and of course we have wanted to introduce people to your site and what is available through the GAC. Though we suffer, as you know, with the GAC very much because there isn't enough people in there to help.
There's one person actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so and we've been suffering with this Data Protection Act, of course, as well.
Yeah.
We have a problem in the CAP here in Epilos. I don't know. I was about to sort that out, but then the people in the VMO changed. You know, we changed who was in the VMO. She won't open any emails that come from abroad. The girl in the CAP.
Yeah. No. Town hall issues are
They ask for information, and they're in the legal right to do so. They write emails in Greek and say,
Yeah.
you know, I am the grantor. I can just say anything you want. Please, can you find me this info? Look up and see if he's on the registers. And they won't even open the emails.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
each place must have its own problems. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That it's good to try and address as much as you can. And I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think generally, if people are going to have a convention in a small area, you know, if you talk to the people about what they want, then maybe, you know, you can find out what it is. It will depend. You can use the GAP as a guideline because they know what people come in and ask.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the GAP is strong. You know, we don't have
Right.
a strong one here, so you know, it was a problem. I think I got the ideas mainly from the American Ikarians who kept asking certain questions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do we do about this? Where do we go about that? Where, you know, how would we find this out? So that sort of helped me find topics.
Yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think it's time to end today's Greek Talk episode, Topsy. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
Give me the opportunity to share.
We'll be in touch, and
Yeah.
please keep us posted on, you know, on your project and the DNA project and the trees and all this stuff.
I will.
All righty.
I'll certainly need to show you that one that
Okay.
that they brought. You'll be amazed.
All right.
Okay, you take care. Bye, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, summing up, local genealogy conference can happen. And I think really being on Ikaria during those days of the conference, it was really interesting to see how the locals were engaged in this. And, you know, they were sharing stories. Some of them were bringing photos, trees, as Topsy said. So I think there is room for similar initiatives all around Greece.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
It is.
And Georgia, on Hellenic Genealogy Geek, with all of the influx of people, there's quite a number from Greece, correct?
Yes, which is surprising. Greg, I don't know if you saw, we've had 1,000 new members in just the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And a significant amount of those are from Greece.
Yeah.
And we can see them joining in, answering questions,
Right.
and putting things
Yeah,
out there.
active
So
members.
that's very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully Greeks will become more genealogy aware.
Yeah,
Mhm.
awareness is actually what the problem is. Yes.